What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to, I think this, I don't know what time it'll be released, but should be the last of the 2024 individual player recaps we've done. Dillan Johnson, certainly not last for any reason. Like, this guy is a huge part of this class. Defensive lineman out of Illinois, 6'2". I have it at 285 in here, but I think he's more like 290, 295. Really, really good player. Huge pickup at a spot that they desperately needed a body. Justin, outside of A-guard, this was the other guy you're like, I want to come on and talk Johnson.
Oh yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm gonna be completely upfront. I was not blown away by Johnson's film this last year. I thought he was gonna be good. I did not necessarily see the burst because of the scheme that they were running last year, where he was more of lock in and just hold the line. And he's one of the guys that when I started to see his film pop up from this season, I was really impressed because they started to use him differently coming into the season and let it rip a little bit more and show off the athleticism. And what I came away with, the guy is an absolute beast in terms of physical, and he's got a lot more burst than what I expected. He's a guy, we talk Keanu Benton's type burst. He doesn't necessarily have the measurables in terms of length that Benton has. He has that kind of burst, though. He's capable of being a vicious guy that puts a rip move through and gets through the line and takes out the quarterback. So that's something we don't have a lot right now in the defensive line room. But I think he can definitely be a pass rusher, a guy that creates some field plays in the backfield. So it's really impressive get for Wisconsin on this one.
It should be noted, we certainly talked about it in this show, so if you're in every day or you know it, but three-time state championship wrestler at the Illinois high school level. I feel like, honestly, man, and I don't know how you would put this list of data together, but if you were to go back and find every elite high school wrestler that was a Division I football player on the defensive line, I bet you the hit rate on those guys
is much higher.
As long as they're not knuckleheads, right?
Yeah.
I bet you 80% of them turn into good college football defensive linemen.
I would agree with that, and a part of that is probably hand fighting. There's so much hand fighting involved in wrestling that
I think, one, and I thought this was fascinating, because Luke Fickell talked about this because he's a wrestler, obviously. He talked about it when they were recruiting. I can't think of the guy's name in last year's class wrestler. I'll think of it.
Jamel Howard?
Was it Howard? I don't
think Howard was a wrestler.
I don't think he was a wrestler. I'll think of it, but the bigger point is he was talking about the importance of wrestlers, and he said the one thing that people don't talk about enough is if you're a wrestler, you have to be a competitive SOB. Because you really have to want it, because that's a hard friggin' sport.
Oh yeah, and your motor has to continuously go, or it takes letting down for 1 second, and you can get yourself into a really tough situation.
So let's talk about, we always do this, the three things we like. I'll kick this one off with Johnson. To me, this is very similar to some of the offensive linemen we got. You don't have to project. Like, you know what he's going to look like with 290 pounds, because that's what he's carrying right now, and it looks great. He's going to get stronger, right? You redistribute some of that at the college level. He's going to add a little weight. He's going to get bigger, faster, but he looks great carrying this weight. It's not sloppy. He moves really well with it. You're going to see it on film. He's powerful with it. I love the guys that you don't have to wonder, God, what is that body going to look like when he put on 40 pounds? He's still going to be able to run and move, and you don't have to project with him. He's a very high floor prospect.
He is physically developed enough to play day one. He's a guy who's squatting 700 pounds already, which there are guys who have been in the weight system or weight program for a couple of years that aren't remotely doing that on the defensive line. So that tells you kind of all you need to know about the level of strength that he has. He's going to be an ox. Like, he's going to be a guy that I think from just a brute strength standpoint is going to be a problem. You watch the film that I did like about him from his junior year. When I watched it, I'm like, he's a tree stump. You can't move him. Like, you put two guys on him and he doesn't move. Like, he anchors down and sits, and his legs are so strong and he's so capable of just holding position that guys they can't do anything with him. And he's played in a Chicago league where he's facing guys that have some size to him. So it's not like he's facing a bunch of 220-pound linemen like you might see if he's playing in a smaller state.
Give me the next thing you like about him. So we kind of talked about the size, the strength, the ready-made ability. What else do you got that you really like about Dillan Johnson?
Well, he by all accounts, obviously he's a very smart kid. Was able to get into Northwestern initially. So, he has a good head on his shoulders. I can't begrudge anyone for wanting to go to that school academically. And that was one of the things that was really a big deal with his recruitment, was he was somebody who was very high on academics. So this was a big get for Wisconsin. Typically, kids that are high on academics and legitimately high on academics have a good head on their shoulders.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's something I've talked to repeatedly about in this class. Anytime a lot of our offensive linemen had like Duke, Virginia, Stanford type offers, I'm like, anytime you see one of your kids with a Stanford, Virginia, Duke, those type of offers, I love it because it just speaks to the type of character they typically have. I'll talk about the third thing I love about Dillan, and we already hit on it, but when I make these lists, I kind of make these lists before the show, and then we kind of have an intro. It's just a wrestling background. I don't think you can go wrong bringing in a great wrestler to play defensive line or offensive line. I just think they come with intangibles. They come with leverage. They know how to condition, right? They're typically great athletes for their size. And like Luke Fickell said in that interview a year ago, they just know how to compete. Like they know how to fight.
He knows his body better than most players do because he's had to use it and like know his limitations in terms of the wrestling and hand fighting than what most players do just playing football. So he probably has a little bit more of an idea of what he can get away with when he steps foot into the defensive line.
Let's put the film up.
Yes, it's just mowing through two guys.
Like I said, when you watch him, like he's 290, 285 there. He doesn't look sloppy at all.
No. And you just look at how he, like the offensive lineman wants to get into him and block, and he pops him with his hands, and you just see the offensive lineman rock. Like here, like just look at how violent that is, that him attacking the offensive line between those two guys and splitting the offensive line.
And you see him split a lot of doubles. Here's what, like, you love the motor, right? This is a screenplay. He's the defensive tackle that runs 5-6 yards down the field to track that down. That's what you'd expect.
And he's capable. He's very athletic for a guy his size.
The other thing I like, and you see this on film a lot, his initial get off, and I think this comes back to that wrestling background. He plays with leverage. Like he's not high when he gets off the ball. He attacks off the snap. Now there are some clips where he does get a little high, but off the snap he's low. He's impactful. He's attacking. That takes time. And how many high school players do we talk about on the lines? We're like, man, they got to play lower. That techniques. You don't have to worry.
Where you see him instantly stand up the second the ball snapped. It's like, no, you got to use that. You're losing all your force.
That's a great clip there.
And he has a chance to be an absolute monster in the defensive line. Like you would like him to be 2 inches taller, but if he was, you're looking at Keanu Benton. Like that, they would have been dropping another guy like that.
Yeah, the thing too, though, and you mentioned this, I thought this was a great point you brought up, was the kind of the tree stump. Several years ago, Ohio State's defense line coach, not the current one, I forget who it was, but he said, you want a couple defense linemen who are just sawed off tree stumps. That's literally what he said, because you can't move them. And I thought that was a really good point.
He's going to be a monster in the run game.
It's easier to be that way.
It's going to be so hard to shift him and move him out of the middle. And he's going to be capable of blowing it up and just splitting a double team and getting the guy in the backfield.
Who plays earlier, him or Willer?
It's going to be him.
I think so too.
Hands down. I think that he's physically ready to do it now. I think Willer, you're looking at, you probably want to get 10 more pounds out of him. But I think ends, there's so much more at stake, especially with the RPO type game, where he's got to be so disciplined in what he does. And if you have a defensive end that's not disciplined in that, you're potentially giving up a 30-yard run off the edge.
Yeah, I have Dillan as one of my first guys on the field. I think he's going to play in the defense line year one. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Like, and partially, Justin, we talked about this too, and this goes back to how big of a get this is. It's also there. It's not a deep treasure chest there on the defensive line. Like, they need bodies, and it's going to allow him to play early.
We don't have many guys with his type of athleticism. Like, he's got a burst and strength that.
I don't think we have any on the inside. Like,
I would have to see more of Kurt Neal to like really take a look at him, but he's even bigger than Neal. Neal's only like 6 foot, so he's legitimately probably 6'2", and physically, like, man, look at his feet. Look how nimble he was on that.
So that's something we had him on the show, and he said specifically off season, I worked on pass rush. I worked on being a little better in that area, and I think you see some of that show up on film. You see, by the way, you see him stringing together a couple moves. There's a swim move, a rip move. He had a clip earlier in this where he had a swim move and then went right into a spin move. That's unique agility for a 290-pound defensive tackle. Now, I would argue you don't always benefit by stringing those moves together. That's like the kid just hitting buttons on Madden.
They need to have value, and you need to, like they always talk about attacking half a man. Like they need to make sense when you're actually making the move. You need to be making the move. It's kind of like a guy in the post in basketball. Like if you're going to do a spin move or a drop step on a guy, do it because you have that positioning on the guy, and it's going to be effective. Don't just throw it out there so that you're showing movement on film. Be efficient.
The last thing I'll say with Dillan before I cut it off, I'll give you opportunities to say anything else. I like the versatility he has too, because I could definitely see a lineup where on first down, especially against more of a run heavy team, he's a strong side defensive end, and maybe you have a Jamel
Mhm.
Howard in the middle or somebody else or a portal guy. Then 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, maybe he flips inside and he gives you some pass rush juice from that spot, and you bring in a couple quicker guys on the edges. I think he can play
Yeah.
everywhere, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, I think you can get him out on the edge, and I think he's got enough burst to make a tackle uncomfortable because it's not just that he's got a lot of burst, he is strong.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a tackle who doesn't get your hands and keep that distance with him, he's going to cause problems on you because he's going to be more athletic than most of the tackles he goes against.
All right, we're gonna cut it there, guys. We'll watch one more clip. Let's watch one more because sometimes it's just fun. There's your swim move,
Yep.
tracking it, and that's
tackle for loss.
Yeah, and that's a swim move, tackle for loss, but tackle for loss, tracking down the line of scrimmage for a defensive tackle, right? Like that shows that athleticism, man.
Yeah, catching the play from behind.
Is a good prospect, man. All right, we're gonna cut it there. Kick it over to Brian Smith to talk a little bit more from his national perspective on Dillan Johnson. I want to talk. Let's talk Dillan Johnson here, because if there's been two themes that we've talked about consistently on this show, it's upgrade on the edges, right? Cornerback, receiver, and then get defensive lineman. The Badgers do take advantage of the turmoil at Northwestern. They flipped Dillan Johnson, somebody they've been in on. I think he's a really interesting prospect because he carries 290 really well already. He's a great wrestler. What are your thoughts on Dillan Johnson?
I think he's a kid that was probably overlooked a little bit. I had a buddy of mine who I really respect. He's been watching film and stuff for 35, 40 years. He said, he's okay. And I said, dude, he's got pretty good technique and he plays really hard. I bet you he could play at a major Power 5 school and do something. And like right after he committed to Wisconsin or whatever, I said, I bet he's going to end up starting there. I'm not saying he's going to be an incredible player, but you can't teach 285, 290. He plays with pad level, goes at it hard. He changed direction. He's not a burner for a big guy. I know that sounds kind of weird, but certain guys you're just like, holy cow, he shot out of a cannon. He's not that, but in short area, he's an impactful player, and he kind of fits what you would have thought of 10, 15 years ago at Wisconsin. They always had a nose guard that was super annoying, and it could get up the field. And, they've changed their defense a few times, but this kid in a one-gap scheme is nasty. I'm curious to see if he can play some two-gap and be consistent with it. I don't know, but he's already close to 290, so it's possible.
Is he a guy that you can put just in front of the center, maybe even a zero tag, and just have him control that middle portion of a run game?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's hard, bro. It's the rarest of the rare. There's in college football coming out of high school, there are 5 to 10 kids a year that can do that. Mm-hmm. That's just grown man strength. To put it in perspective, there's a kid in Georgia that's raw, but because of his size, he was 390 and he's lost the weight. He's like 350. Georgia and Florida battled for him, even though he has like no technique. Can't teach size. They both want a zero technique. He committed to Florida and Georgia's still recruiting him. There's only a handful of those guys.
Right.
The size is impossible to find. So he might be able to, but I wouldn't guarantee it.
When we talk about defensive line recruiting, because again, we've done this a ton now, and Hank Weber's on board, Dillan Johnson's on board. These feel like when you talk to people, when you talk to fans, it feels like high floor guys. And I hate saying that because I don't want to. That sounds like a backhanded compliment. But what does this do for Wisconsin's defensive line room, and where do they still need to go?
He's a guy that you can use as a starter at some point. He's not an impact guy necessarily. You and I have talked about a number of times, like, what do you have to do to get to the playoff and all that? Well, here's a stat for you that is even for me, and I'm a stat nerd. Bud Elliott's a buddy of mine, and CBS 247, and he does that recruiting, forget the rankings thing. It's very popular. And he added a stat on one of his podcasts that I listened to. He said over like the last 3-4 years, the average for the team that won the title on their two deep, they had 7 guys that ended up in the first round of the draft. I mean, for the love of mankind, it's just pure talent. I mean, it sounds like the only thing you got to do is recruit. That's not true. But at some point, you've got to hit on some higher percentage guys too. Where's Wisconsin in that? This is where it gets very murky. And I don't like this, but I think at some point they're going to have to make some business decisions here. Can you go out and get one transfer a year edge, corner, or D tackle. Those are the 3 spots. That is a game changer. You're probably not going to beat Georgia for D linemen. I'm just going to throw that out there. If you look at, there's about 5 to 7 schools that get all the D linemen that everybody wants. It's just true. So how do you overcome that? Transfers, red shirt, and you obviously got to make sure you develop.